Hello, welcome. I hope you're having a good day. Today I'm going to talk about the Zeapon slider and pan tilt system and show you how I use it and give you my pros and cons. All of the equipment that I use is purchased with my own money. I make the money selling stock video, and I use the money from stock video to buy more equipment and to improve my skills and improve my level of professionalism. So this is one of the things that I bought, a slider. It comes with a pan and tilt head. First, let me go over some of the specs. This is called the Zeapon Micro3, and I have the E700. The E7, there's three sizes. There's the E500, the E700, and the E1000. The E500 goes 27 inches. The one I have, the E700, goes 30 inches, and the E1000 goes 42 inches. The E500 sells for $600. The $700 is $650. Excuse me, the E700 is $650. The E1000 is $740. Now, if you buy the PONS system, that's the pan and tilt system separately, that's $600. Or you can buy the E700, you can buy the whole kit that I have for $1,150. That is a lot of money. But if you look at any kind of slider with 3 axes of motion, you're gonna pay a lot of money for it. This is cheaper than the others, and the build quality is better. But I have had some problems with it, and I'll talk about those at the end. First, let me show you how easy it is to set up. I'm just gonna go ahead and set it up. It comes in these cases. Let me put my notes aside. This is a bag that I put all my wires and batteries and cables and stuff like that in. So I'll get that out so that I can use it. It's got the PONS head system in it. So the Zeapon slider comes in this nice case, and it is easy to use and easy to set up. You don't have to calibrate it at all. I pull these legs out, and it is I'll put it about right here. It is a double distance slider, meaning that it's got a bed that slides on top of the base, and it goes double the distance that it takes up only this distance, but it slides from here out to here, which like I said is 30 inches or about 2.5 feet. You can put just a ball head on here and use it as a slider, and you can't even buy this without the motor, and you can slide it by hand. The problem with that is you only have 1 axis of motion, and to me that is not good. So anyway, it's also got a lock up here, and it's got a tension knob so you can adjust the tension on how easy or how much weight you put on it to have it slide. So you could put a camera on it at an angle and have it slide, and then you could just adjust the tension to make it slide slower or require more weight. See, now I have it slide just really slow. So, you know, you could use it on its own. It also can make a difference with the temperature outside. Sometimes I notice in the winter, I'll add a little bit of tension to just make it so that it moves really smooth with the motor. In addition to this, it comes with these 2 side supports. So there's a number of ways to mount this. You can put this right on the ground. If you're going to do that, I don't like weeds or grass or anything coming up and getting into the gear, so I would put a tarp or a blanket or something down, and I've done that before. And you can also put it on a plate. I have the quick plate that Zeapon also sells, and I put that on my big tripod. And then you can screw these into the side and put those on the legs of the tripod, so that when it's way out here with the camera on the end, you don't get it tilting or falling over, which would be disastrous. It would ruin your shoot, and if you're doing a time lapse, it would ruin your entire time lapse. So you can also put, these have 1/4 inch screws for these, and you can also put a Swiss Arca plate or any kind of plate and put it on. Sometimes I'll put it on these small kind of tripods. So in here, these cases come with it, and these supports come with it. This is the motor. It's a very nice case, and it's got a place for a battery too, if you like it. If you want to put a battery in there. All I do is set that on there and tighten these on the side, and the motor is set up. You don't have to calibrate it or do anything else. The batteries that you use are these Sony NPF batteries. Most photographers have a ton of these. I do as well. I happen to like these kind the best, that show how much charge there is in it with a light bar. And also it's got an input and out. You can charge them directly, and you can also charge things up with these. You can connect this to a camera, the slider with a wire, your lights. You can use these for anything, and most of you will have a lot of these. These are not expensive, they're easy to use. And all you do is hook it on right here. And that's the slider set up now. And that's, like I say, it's already, you don't have to calibrate it or anything. It's just ready to go. It's very easy to use. Now, if we're gonna put on the panning, these are called PONS. One is a pan and one is a tilt. They're exactly the same. The only way that the machine knows which one is different is if when you turn it on, it's vertical or horizontal. If you're gonna use the pan and tilt. So with this on, and a lot of times I just use this. You can put a ball head right up here. All you need to do is press in to get this out. The tilt arm goes here. And then this goes here. Next thing we can do is put a camera on here. Let me just turn it a little bit to the side so I can access it better. And it's got a magnetic plate down here. And so all you need to do is slide this on and get the plate in position. And it needs to be fairly balanced between these two. You want basically the center way of the camera to line up with this, and that's all you need to do. And then you tighten, and it's ready to go. Of course, I need batteries on here. This is the tilt, and this is the pan access down here. Okay, now if I turn all these on, just need to press the on button. And they're all on, and then what I'll do is connect it to my app. Okay, we're going to set this up as if it's for the first time. So you'd go to the App Store and you type in Zeapon Labs. It'll show up, Zeapon Lab. It shows up there. We'll download it. And okay, it's downloaded. So when you open this for the first time, I'm just going to say skip all these things. Those are instructions. It won't connect the first time. So go into the slider and just select the slider. That's the Zeapon Micro3 module. That's the one I have. Of course, it's showing up there because it gets the signal from the Bluetooth, so it knows what it's there. And then I can go to the heads and do the same thing. Oh, okay, it was only showing one head. I was making sure they were both on. So they're both there. So that's all you do to connect them for the first time. And then you hit done down here and you have the controls. So I can move the Zeapon slider to either side, and I can turn the camera. I'll turn it so it's facing you and tilt it down. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to slide. So suppose I was going to put it over there. I would select waypoint A. Maybe I'd want to tilt it to, let's pretend like we're doing a Milky Way time lapse. I'd want to tilt it up here, let's say, and then we go all the way to the other side. That's good enough. I don't want it to hit the edge there. And then suppose I wanted it to pan over here and go down a little bit, or not that far down, but suppose I wanted it to go there, and then I would hit B. Now you can put in a bunch of other waypoints, but for time lapses, so I use this for time lapses. I use this to film myself. I use this for real estate shoots. It's very nice when you come around the corner and reveal a room on a nice sliding and panning motion. And I use this on a number of things, but the thing that I like the most about it is time lapses. It's the reason I bought it. I just wanted to add motion, dynamic motion to my time lapses, and especially for Milky Ways. So now, if I was starting at A, I just hit the A button and go back to A. They do sell a trigger, and I have it, but I don't recommend it, and I'll show you why. I watched a review. I was using the trigger. And the review that I was watching was Richard Tati, Nightscape Images. And what he found was that if he just put this on a very slow motion from point A to B, then you don't need the trigger, which allows you to do move, shoot, move. The trigger is activated by the camera. Every time the shutter goes down, it moves the slider and the pan tilt just a very micro amount. But if you're moving from this side to that, and a time lapse lasts 4 hours, you're never going to need that move, shoot, move. And I know people don't believe that, but it's the truth. I've done it many, many times, and I found that it's better to use an intervalometer or the internal intervalometer. In this case, it's the Sony a7 III, has an internal intervalometer. I would rather use that on manual than have it doing move, shoot, move. And if you're doing it faster, suppose you're doing a sunset and it's only 20 minutes, it's still moving slow enough that you don't need the trigger device. Because even though you're moving that distance in 20 minutes, your shutter speed is much faster, because your shutter speed is going to be 1/15 or 1/50 even. So, you can also, by the way, just hit play and it'll play from one side to the other. So this is good if you're doing, like I say, a real estate shoot or a product shoot. This is very good for macro. I've done a lot of macro work with it. And these clips are selling. That's the thing that I bought it for, was to improve my production value. So you can see it's moving. You can also adjust the speed. I've got it moving at 100%, but I could slow it down if I want. And I can also hit back and forth, and it'll just go, like if you're doing a interview, and you want the person you're talking to be in the center of the frame, and you want a kind of a parallax or a sliding motion, it'll just go back and forth, and then you can take out all the clips that you want. Now, here's some things I've noticed about it. If you have more than 2 waypoints and you're doing this constant video, it will pause between each waypoint. And in video, live video, that does not look good. So that's something that Zeapon's got to fix in the app. It just doesn't look good. If you're doing a time lapse, it doesn't matter at all because the time, it doesn't matter when you're doing a time lapse if there's a pause, because the pause is just doesn't matter. If you have 2 waypoints, it slides back and forth, and it's very natural like that. Okay, another thing I've noticed about this is that it's loud. And so if you have a microphone up here, it's not going to work. That doesn't bother me because I do stock video. I don't have a microphone on the camera. But if you're doing interviews, I would not put the microphone on the slider. I'll put my lavalier mic down low here, and you can hear what it sounds like when it goes. So noise is a definite issue. Let me bring it back to A, and I'll show you what I do for time lapses so that I don't need the trigger, and I don't like the trigger up there. What I'll do is I'll go to the various modes, and this mode here, called Customize Time Lapse. The default is that it'll do shutter time 1 second and interval time 1 second. Leave those there. What you want to do, you can see I put it on 24 frames per second. If I did it from point A to point V, as it's programmed right now, it would take 9 minutes. But if I'm doing a Milky Way time lapse, I want to go from sunset to Milky Way. And so it's going to be 4 or 5 hours. So what I'll do is just go up here and experiment a little bit. Again, I don't want to claim that I figured this out. I learned this from Richard Tati at Nightscape Images. And let's say I put in 7,000. I put in 7,000, that's 3 hours and 53 minutes and 20 seconds. So almost 4 hours. So that would probably work for me, but suppose let's just play around here. If I do 8,500, what is that? I want 5 hours. So that's 4 hours and 53 minutes. So let me do 9,000. You just experiment a little bit. 9,000. That's exactly 5 hours. What nice coincidence. And then all I have to do is hit the start button, and it starts. And it will take 5 hours to move from this position to over to this position. And so then all I need to do is, with my PhotoPills app, is point it where the Milky Way is before sunset and where it's going to be in 5 hours, and it will follow the Milky Way exactly. You can do the same thing with a sunset or with the moon or with anything you want. And then you can use either an attached intervalometer or the camera's internal intervalometer to manually control your settings. And in that way, you get a perfectly smooth, beautiful nightscape time lapse. So that's the way I use this the most. Let me, however, tell you about a few problems that I've had. So I have owned this more than a year. I've done many time lapses with it and many shoots with it. And I waited for a while before I wanted to do any kind of review, because I've had some problems with it. The hardware, as you can see, by the way, you can use the buttons on it too to move it around. You can also program them that way, but it's hard. You need the app to do the time lapses, and I prefer to use the app. But you can use these buttons to pan and tilt. It's no problem at all, and you can have it move. You don't have to use the app at all. But because I do time lapses, I want to use the app. I need to use the app to get that long duration. If it's just moving 1 second at one interval, and I put in 9,000 like I did to move 5 hours, that's the only way to do that is by using the app. So for me, the app is essential. But here are the problems that I've had with the app. I think all of these are fixable. Not only am I giving you the problems, I'm giving you the solutions. So if you have this system and it's not working, follow these solutions. And by the way, if you want to contact Zeapon, what I do is I go on Instagram and I message them directly. I don't post on their Instagram comments. I message them directly and I say, I have this model and this is the problem I have. And whenever I've done that, they've answered me right away. So here's the problems I've experienced. The first one is the app will not work if there's a firmware update. Now, that's not that big a deal if you're in the city, but I go out in the middle of the desert or in the mountains to do time lapses. And one time I got up there, it said firmware update and nothing would work. Okay, so when that happens, so what I've learned basically is that you've got to check to see if there's any updates right before you go. Because if you get up, you're camping and you're hiking or whatever you're doing, I drive a four-wheel drive truck, and so I get out in the middle of nowhere and I can't do a firmware update and it doesn't allow me to work. It's kind of like DJI used to be and sometimes still is. If you can't update it, it just won't let you work. So check before you go. That's an easy thing to do, but you got to remember to do it. The other thing is sometimes the app will not connect. I put it up there, I'm connecting, I'm trying to put my waypoints in, and the app simply will not connect, no matter what I do. I turn it off and on. What I found on that is you have to completely delete the app off your phone, download it, and reconnect it as if you're doing this for the first time. It takes a minute, but again, that's a problem if you're up in a place where you cannot download the app again. So again, just to make sure, if I'm leaving someplace where there's not a signal, where I don't have data, I don't have the internet, then I automatically delete the app and download it again and leave it fresh, brand new, so that when I get up to the mountains or the desert, wherever I'm going, I open it, I connect it for the first time. Because otherwise, if it does that, there's no way I'm going to use it, and then I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm, you know, where I wanted to get a motion time lapse or motion video, I'm unable to do so. So nowadays I delete it every time and I repeat it every time. There's a bug in the app for sure, and Zeapon is working on it. The other thing I've had is that these pan and tilts, by the way, they work every time, and you can buy them separately. Having a pan and tilt just on top of a tripod is a very good way to add motion to a time lapse or to a video, and you don't have to have the slider. If you're going to buy this in pieces, I would buy the PONS pan and tilt first, and then buy the slider later with the money that you make from this device. So at any rate, these always work, but the slider has sometimes the motor, it's got some lights on it here. Let me show you. This is a heavy device when it's all hooked up, but you can see the lights down here. And one time, this light, when I turned it on, was just bright red, just glowing red, and it wouldn't connect to anything. It wouldn't move with the buttons. It wouldn't move with anything, and it was like it was totally seized up. What I found out, I messaged Zeapon, and they told me to reinstall the firmware, which I thought was weird because I knew the firmware was up to date. But here's what I did. You go into the app, you hit the settings, you go to the firmware, and it'll say the firmware is up to date. Hit update anyway, and it'll ask you, do you want to reinstall the firmware? Say yes, and it reinstalls the firmware, which resets this motor. That's only happened to me once in a year, and now I know how to fix it. It's not a big deal. So you can see that there are some things from Zeapon to work on. But one thing I've got to say is that the hardware is top-notch. It just couldn't be machined any better than it is. It is precision, it is smooth, it is beautiful. It's like a work of art, and it really works well. And the same thing with the cases and everything else. So the problem has been with me with the app, and all of those problems you can overcome, but you got to think ahead. And I do believe that Zeapon, well, they tell me they're working on this. They communicate with me, and I'm not a big YouTuber, so I don't think it's because I have a channel. I don't influence that many people. I'm not an influencer, and I'm not one of their ambassadors. They get back to me really quick, and they've offered me ways to fix it. So I find that even though it has these problems, it is manageable, and hopefully they'll have updates to the app that will make it even better. Thank you for watching. This to me has been a moneymaker. It's had some problems, but again, I'm giving you the 3 problems that I've experienced over the course of over a year and the solutions how to fix it. So even though I know those limitations or those problems, They're all overcomable now that I know what they are. I don't think there's any more, and I think that they'll be fixed. I really like this piece of equipment, and I've made a lot of money selling stock video that was filmed on the Zeapon Micro3 slider and PONS pan and tilt system. Hope this is helpful. Have a good day. And if you're doing stock video, I hope you get some great sales.